So I have the honor of introducing our speaker today, Chris Perakis. So I just wanted to tell a little bit of story about how I met Chris and how our journey to having shadow teachers at VIS, Vienna International School, has really changed. And so when I came to Vienna International School, we didn't have any shadow teachers or what we call now one-to-one individual learning assistants. And so a one-to-one individual learning assistant or shadow teacher is a support person who supports a student that generally has more significant needs. And so in the primary school at VIS, we're a lot more inclusive and we're able to be a lot more flexible with our curriculum. And I think maybe our teachers too are more interested in supporting also our students with a variety of needs. And so we were encountering problems. And so once our students were going from 5 to grade 6, our secondary school wasn't set up. And also I feel like the attitudes weren't really right there to transition our students that had a shadow teacher from primary into secondary school. And so it was obviously a really big challenge because myself and my team, when I was head of learning support, were just kind of like so frustrated. And what can we do to help our students and our families? Because it's really quite devastating when you have to tell a family that they can't continue into a school. And so we saw at a conference. I think it was a leadership conference, and Chris was running one of the workshops on inclusive classrooms. And so I put in a proposal to get the whole team to go, and then it was really great because her conference, we were able to really focus on our problem, and then she supported us through the way. And so we just really talked about how can we build capacity for our current staff in the primary school, but also our secondary staff. And how can we convince our leadership team that this is necessary and to show them that we're passionate about our students and we want to be able to provide an inclusive program that goes from primary all the way to secondary. And so then I also put in another proposal to go visit the American School of Athens. And so Chris put up a whole timetable for me when I arrived. And that time I brought the head of secondary learning support to say, hey, come check out their shadow teachers, because they convinced me that of course you can have shadow teachers in secondary school. Why not? Why only primary school? What's kind of getting in your way? And so I grabbed Merle, who was the head of secondary learning support, and I said, come on, let's go see a school that has this in action. And so we went and we're just kind of blown away. And then we just created a whole proposal for our own school to say that we need to value who we are as a school, and we do believe in inclusion, but we have to kind of put our money where our mouths are. And so our school backed it. And so we invested in our staff. We grew our staff. We gained an educational psychologist, but more importantly, we gained a whole team that was able to kind of look at the problem they were have and put a solution in place. And so for the last 3 years, now we have students going all the way into the secondary school, and we have around 9 shadow teachers. So we went from 0 to 9 in about 3 years. And so we couldn't have done it without the help from Chris. And so we're really appreciative, and I'm really excited for her to share everything that she knows with other schools, because the importance is collaborating, and not collaborating just within your own school, but reaching out for help from other schools and seeing how you can connect, pick each other's brains, do visits when you're able to, and just say, hey, can you give a helping hand or some helping advice, and see how it can help push my school forward. So she was that for our school, and I'm sure that she'll be that for all of you as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Chad, I think you said it all. That's what we're here as a committee, to support other schools, try to get things through and do the best for their students, because you have to look what is the best fit for the student in that particular school. So thank you for the introduction. I'm glad I inspired you. You've inspired others, and all of us will inspire many, many more. So, Abigail, are we ready? You can start sharing your screen.
Or do you not see it now?
I can only see the first slide. You need to move to. Thank you. Okay, in this month's session, we decided we're going to look into what the role of the shadow teacher is in the classroom. Now, the term we use, shadow teachers, many of you call it student one-to-one, support teacher, paraprofessional, student assistant, co-teacher, etc. It really depends on the school culture, the area we are coming from, and what everybody is comfortable with using. My experience and training with shadow teachers started over 20 years ago, and it has grown throughout the world. The needs of our students are many, as you all know. The ones with moderate needs benefit from one-to-one classroom support, and we as educators have to embrace this collaboration to benefit the student. With us today to assist with the conversation and answering your questions, we have Ms. Natalia Maravillas. She's the shadow teacher coordinator, as well as our in-house education and diagnostic testing center coordinator at ACS Athens. So you can wave at the audience, Natalia, and Ms. Jasmina Mohamed Ali, a shadow teacher that has over 10 years experience working with students in all grade levels and various diagnoses. We will try answering your questions you already sent to us during the presentation. And if you have more, do send us a note in chat and we will try answering them from there as well. Our goal today, and I'm saying our goal is because I think I'm speaking on behalf of ACS and our ECIS SIG group, is that to make you think of those students in your classroom that can use the support service and to help you find the ways to make it happen, just like Chad School did. So I'm sure you've seen this. Hold on, because my computer is slow. You've seen this many times. So before we begin, I thought I would share with you this photo of what it seems to be a different classroom of learners. Start thinking outside the box as we begin exploring the importance of the role of the shadow teacher and the shadow teacher in your classroom. How can the expectations be the same for everyone? From the students in the photo, we all know who can climb a tree and who cannot. So we need to think and be fair of what the expectations are for our students so they can enjoy, learn, and be successful in the process of teaching and learning on a daily basis. I'm going to be giving some pointers of what the role is and why is it important and how does this affect in the classroom setting. So it is important for the student that needs the service. That's number one, because if we look at what students need and that student needs that person for A, B, C reasons, that's the reason why it's important for us to find ways to incorporate them in our school system. We as teachers must also understand what the role is in the classroom and in the school, so we can collaborate effectively with them to benefit, again, the student. Therefore, before even a shadow teacher enters your classroom or your school, they must understand what the role is, the expectations, of course, this culture, depending on the school needs and the student needs, as mentioned on this and the next slide. For example, and I'm using ACS as an example because that's the school I've had most experience with. In the beginning of each school year, there's a shadow teacher training session whereby new shadow teachers are introduced to the philosophy and vision of the school, as well as the protocols, procedures, and expectations of the school. So everyone begins pretty much on the same page. What they need to know how to do are what we as teachers are also expected to know and follow for making sure our students find success in school and enjoy the teaching and learning experience. The student population is as diverse as their learning differences. Therefore, we all need to be clear of what is inclusion, difficulties within a learning difference or learning disabilities. There's language acquisition. Are they EAL, ESL, mother tongue? There's so many different terminologies. And yesterday we had a discussion about trying to find common terminology to use. I found it's so difficult to do this when you're talking about global schools and different experiences everyone has. So we need to know all this to be able to use their strengths to build up their weaknesses. Now, clear and transparent communication between you, and I'm presuming most of you are educators, the shadow teacher and parents will bring about optimal results for your student needs. This can only happen if everyone is on the same page and if the student hears the same things from everyone, so the student doesn't get confused with mixed messages. I hope you notice it's always the student comes first. Now the shadow teacher becomes the middle person, which means he or she will be bringing everything together. The communication channels must be transparent, objective, and should only directly affect the particular student. In addition, we must always remember that the communication channels must follow the school's established processes. Student needs to hear the same thing, as I said, from everyone. If we're not sure, it's better that we ask. The most efficient and effective form of communication we found out is through writing. A short note, a brief email will give any party the opportunity to write exactly what the others need to know or important information they need to share. Often, we also use the Google shared files. It's a way of keeping everything together. Setting boundaries. It's very important that students need to know what the expectations are, the do's and the don'ts. All teachers are students' advocates. Therefore, the student must realize that you're there to support them, and it can work if they collaborate and follow the school and home rules and expectations. Teachers need to guide the shadow teachers towards providing discreet yet effective support in the classroom. Make sure you've established your lead position in the classroom so that both students and shadow teachers know they can depend on you. Why do we do it again? It's because there are student benefits. And the benefits are many. I will mention a few. The shadow teacher is recommended to students so they can follow the mainstream classroom instruction and have positive interaction with their peers during non-instruction time and in an inclusive environment. Globally, the self-contained classrooms in international and local schools are going away slowly. The shadows guide the students towards learning how to use their strengths and how to target their specific academic or behavioral goals. They can provide educational enrichment inside the classroom or even in a quieter location agreed upon during mutually convenient times. The shadow teacher can create materials that assist the students in accessing the curriculum through visuals, manipulatives, enrichment activities, review opportunities, and repetition and practice. Afterwards, Jasmina can give you many more examples of all the things she has been able to produce for the students that needed it, especially in the high school level. Now, you as a teacher or the educator benefit from the shadow teacher because you have on-the-spot feedback in regards to the progress or lack thereof made daily in specific tasks given to your students. They can provide background information that could help you connect meaningfully within the student. They can facilitate small group opportunities to the student to demonstrate their academic growth in the subject area. They facilitate lunch and recess interactions and activities with peers, especially when there's a behavioral concern or a goal in mind. And there are many more benefits as you work together to promote the best teaching and learning opportunities for all the students in the classroom. What you as a teacher need to remember is that you're the one responsible for all the students in the classroom. But you need to collaborate with a shadow teacher on how to best support and guide the student in the classroom. Because both of you together will create the environment of collaboration amongst you, and then the teaching and learning process will be easily given. So how do we define the role of a shadow teacher at ACS Athens? We define it as a progressive form of assistance to a student that acts as a resource for the school and the parent. In the United States, shadow teachers, as I said before, are termed paraprofessionals, instructional aides. Chad mentioned assistant or instructional tutor. I've heard that as well. It really depends on what your school wants to call these support educators. It would be nice if you take a moment and write in the chat what you call this service at your school so we all can see the different names across the schools that you represent and what you call this service. The shadow teachers assist us in creating a successful golden triangle because the experience is catered to a meaningful collaboration among parents, students, and teachers. What you need to know is that shadow teachers are employed by the families and assist in the communication collaboration between all parties involved. All shadow teacher candidates are screened by the coordinators, and the parents decide who they consider to be the best fit for their child within the recommendations of the coordinators. They are paid monthly. They have signed agreement contracts. These contracts are a legal document that they allow them to be on campus. They wear school IDs. They're obliged to follow school rules, policies, and regulations. And they also sign agreement points that are being discussed with parents prior to starting. These agreement points cover the extent of their communication because I know I had parents calling teachers or shadows every 5 minutes or every break or 10 times a day. And you can't do that. A purpose is to be in the classroom and help the students and not to be uh, letting the parents know every step of the way. What they're going to be doing after school or how much support they're going to be giving them in homework, if they're going to be driving them at home or not. These are the agreements that need to happen prior to school starting. The most important goal, though, is to remember from all sides is the shadow teacher is to guide the student towards becoming independent. So independence in school is the ultimate goal. I think because the PowerPoint will be shared with you, I will not go into much detail about the job description. One thing you need to remember, these are all professionals. They either have a teaching background or they're a psychologist. So they do have the background and the know-how on how to support students in the classroom. They're advocates for the student individual needs. They are the people that have the fine balance between home and school. They're the ones who take weekly log notes on a daily basis to allow this communication to happen. What worked well? What didn't work well? What do we all need to work together? So you can imagine how important it is for the collaboration to happen with the teachers, because if these two professionals work together, optimal results will happen and the best possible support will be given to the student that needs their service. It is vital that you create a safe and mutually respectful environment in your classroom for the shadow teachers. They're professionals, as I said, in their own fields, who are there to assist the school in supporting the students. So as an educator or classroom teacher, it would be good to try to schedule a brief weekly meetings to exchange ideas of what worked and what didn't work. Remember, the goal is the student's experience and not yours. Be open to feedback yourself. A shadow teacher has a unique perspective and may offer ideas and strategies of how to provide support. They're not here to criticize or tell the teacher how to run the classroom, but they can have some really good ideas specific to your shared student. When you're not sure how to handle a situation, meet with a learning support specialist to set a clear path towards communication. And if you can't share honest feedback with a shadow teacher, then we have to look at the collaboration more closely. Natalia can tell you afterwards how many times a teacher might come to the office to say, complain that a shadow teacher is doing this, that, and the other. And we say, you have to be blunt and real and have a conversation with the shadow and say, the best way that you can help the student is by not sitting next to them, or take the student on the side and work on this, or take another small group and work together. It really depends on the dynamics and the expertise of the teacher to make all this happen. So independence is the key. The stronger the support team is, the faster the student gains independence. The shadow teacher's main focus is for the student not to need them anymore. And every time I talk about examples of students, and Jasmina, who's with us today, can say a few things. Students that struggled in middle school and high school are working independently in college and are doing pretty well. So I say to everyone, you need to believe that these kids can do it, and they'll find a way to help them make it there. Because if we believe that they can do it, we'll find the pathway for them to get there. So early intervention is key in helping students build on the skills that they're underperforming in. The shadow teacher support is there to facilitate a student's learning, with the ultimate goal being, again, independence. Students might also be receiving additional support, including occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, etc. That's okay as well. And they all work together as a team. And Chad mentioned the child study team, the way we also run our child study team, how every person in the team has a specific role and all together are there to benefit the student. So you may not agree, but the student support and well-being in school is all that matters. Students are acutely aware of when adults in the room aren't getting along and when they are not on the same page and working towards the same goal. If something doesn't work, try something else. Make sure you've shared your lesson plans, your Google folders, your Moodle shell, or any other platform you use for instruction, so the shadow teacher has access to the content and can prepare materials and activities for your shared student. If the shadow teacher is in the dark most of the time, then they can't be proactive, efficient, and effective. The child study team is pretty much what Chad discussed last month, so I will not get into it. But usually, most of the times, the child study team recommends that a student has a shadow teacher or one-to-one support system because of their moderate needs cannot be met by themselves in the classroom. I mentioned the other support systems. So being reflective educators help us become more aware of what our student needs are. Here are some reflections, questions, ideas for you to think about. What personal connections can you make between your school's mission and vision to the role and goals you have as a teacher? Which ways will you be able to collaborate with a shadow teacher in your classroom to bring about optimal results for all your students? Chad mentioned that the whole administrative team has to believe in the idea to make it happen. It's number one. But if one teacher has this belief that can help a child, you have to keep saying the same thing over and over till someone hears you. One of my favorite quotes is, if a child can learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach them the way they learn. It is a paradox that despite the lack of training shadow teachers have, they are assigned to students who exhibit the most challenging needs, both academic and or behavioral, but then we do not support them in the best possible way. Research shows that shadows feel appreciated by giving them important responsibilities. being listened to, having the orientation and support from the teachers to help the student. They're not there to make photocopies or to be another person in the class just listening to what's happening in class. They're professionals, just like all of us, and they're able to support the student and the classroom in the best possible way. Finishing this presentation, let's all remember that shadow teachers as facilitators impact student and peer interaction, have a powerful impact on making the student independent, allowing the classroom teacher to see what his or her responsibilities are in the classroom, and overall make a great impact for the student in an inclusive environment. Thank you for engaging in this process of trying to figure out how to optimally collaborate with a shadow teacher in your classroom. And what is that you can do to best fit any student that might need your individual support. Studies have shown that shadow teachers have globally doubled recently without any adequate training to prepare them for their role in the classroom. So let's all think about how to support each other to benefit all the students. Feel free to send us any questions that you might have, and we will be more than happy to answer them for you. And why not visit us, just like Chat School did. ACS Athens under the Institute will be offering 3 online courses to support the teacher, the shadows, and the parents. Feel free to pass on the information to those who might be interested in taking these courses. As we previously said, everyone needs to be on the same page for optimal results. Natalia, Jasmina, and I are now ready to take your questions. Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I haven't been able to see all the questions in the chat. Maybe Natalia can answer some of your questions with Jasmina.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's such an honor to be here today and to provide you with, Ms. Perakis' presentation was spot on, and we couldn't agree more that, our main focus are the students. So it's really about supporting them in the best way possible to get them to reach their full potential. And as she brought up earlier, there are so many success stories that we can talk about of students that are fully independent and who had very significant needs at an earlier age, but through the holistic support that they received within school and beyond, they're doing very well for themselves. So I'll just look at the questions in the chat. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so a question from April. What benefit do you see to having the family employ the shadow versus the school being the employer? So this really has to do kind of with the logistics of the school and basically the approach that we want to have in terms of being the mediator. So the school is the platform for where shadow teacher can provide its services, but ultimately the employer is the family. So we want to make sure that through the process of them interviewing the shadow teachers and finding who they believe is the best fit for their child, that they're also able to, really have that collaboration and have them have that immediate kind of connection in terms of employing the shadow teacher.
Could I just jump in on that? Because that will depend on which country you're in, won't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
In Germany, for example, you're not allowed to do that.
Mhm.
And so it depends on where you are in the world as to whether you're able to have that arrangement. But
Exactly.
yeah.
It has to do with the policies of the school and the legal aspect of all of that. That's exactly it.
I think Chad's school, correct me if I'm wrong, they are school employees.
Mhm.
Yeah, school employees, but the parents pay the school so additional tuition fees to cover the employer cost. But yeah, so legally we have to, the shadows do have to be employees, and that is legally mandated. And then, but that is, we found that to be beneficial as well, so that we can run the recruiting process. So it's been helpful on one hand, but it's because it is also an employee of the they are an employee of the school. It also has pretty substantial fees, so that's been a challenge for some families as well.
And Chad, you asked, did you say ACS is having workshops on shadow teachers? Can you share this info is open for outside schools, families, etc.? Yes, that is correct. So basically through the institute of our school, we have created asynchronous classes where we've divided it into 3 different categories. So it's for potential new shadow teachers, where their role as a shadow teacher is explained and it's broken down for them. Then we have one for parents, because very often, the child study team might provide a recommendation of a student having a shadow teacher, but the parents come back to me like, yeah, but why? Or what is this going to look like? They have so many questions and concerns. So we have put together, this educational platform for them to kind of have that information at their own time without, being bombarded. And they're really able to kind of have an understanding of what this will look like within the school setting at ACS Athens, okay? And also for educators. So exactly that, what does a shadow teacher service look like in the classroom setting? And this was very, very important because we oftentimes found that, we had to try to fill in the gaps and answer as many questions as possible. And sometimes, we always do our best to do that, and we do that, but we really wanted there to be a platform where all this information can be collected and can be shared with the world, not just ACS, but beyond.
It's a great resource. Can I just, you put that online so then any family at your school, if they were interested, could find that resource?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
It's not just our family. I mean, as a model of all the things that they should know, it will be open, a more genetic one out. That could be any parent, any school, any educator. Now, the term, and you see, it really depends on the culture, the school, and whatever they want to name it. I think, but pretty much what I found out, whatever you call it, it's that support service to the student that everybody understands. It's the same role. And April, I think you might have done some investigation in this area as well.
Yeah, that's right. We've clearly found some of the same research. I'll be presenting on the same topic at the CENIA conference in December, but also putting out a teaching assistant course, because as we know, everybody needs a resource to help in this area. So I appreciate hearing that you guys are doing something very similar, because it's so needed.
Great.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question, which is, fantastic. What were the challenges and celebrations for your shadow teachers during online learning? I'll start with this, and then I'll give the floor to Jasmina, who actually experienced this. So we have, it was a very tough time, especially during the first lockdown when everyone was in a state of panic. Everyone was home. So then there were so many question marks as to, okay, how are the shadow teachers going to be supporting our children at home? Are they going to be coming to the house? Are they going to be supporting virtually? And ultimately, the big challenge here is that because the parents are the employers, right? this was a conversation that had to happen between the shadow teacher and the family, while Sarah Kaldali, my colleague who is the optimal learning coordinator at ACS Athens, and myself had to kind of mediate this communication to make sure that it's something that the family was comfortable with, but also the shadow teachers were comfortable with. So when you had, for example, a family that said, okay, well, you know, I'm paying this professional, so I would really appreciate that they come to the house because my child cannot follow along, you know, on a computer. They're in 3rd grade, right? So we need to make this as optimal as possible. It was really important for us to make sure that our professionals going into the homes felt comfortable doing so given the COVID-19 situation, right? So there were many challenges there. And what I could say in terms of, you know, the celebration is that when the second, you know, wave of COVID hit, and again, we had lockdown last fall, everyone was very quick to adapt. So, you know, everyone just went into problem-solving mode. They communicated very quickly with the families. They found solutions. Some shadow teachers were supporting their students virtually that were in, you know, middle school, while others were going to the houses in order to provide optimal services. So there was a lot of creativity that took place that proved to be quite successful. And I'll give the floor to Jasmina to just.
Okay, so in regards of the challenges, many of us would go to the house of the student. So there we can face the challenge of setting the boundaries because it's their own environment. Stay on task on the computer without changing tabs and video games or any other activity that they might do, because the teacher is not actually, they're not in a classroom setting, but they're in their house and they're in the living room, they're in their bedroom, siblings are around. It's much more difficult for them to focus. Then you're with this student from 9 to 4, even at lunchtime you're there. So you're more hours with them. But on the other hand, you can actually have, because you have one-on-one more time, you can complete more tasks. You can have more time to do different strategies than in the classroom settings. This is, I can say, it was a kind of a benefit. But I think it was a big challenge both for the students and for us to cope and stay on task throughout the day, and you know, follow along without having the consequences or following the school rules. No principal there, no teacher in the class that can actually you know, we get more involved with them, like the role is kind of changing because they feel more comfortable with us because we're with them throughout the day, more time, not just in the class. So yeah, and then, you know, you need to be very with the boundaries, like setting the boundaries, I think was the most challenging, and for them to stay on task on the device and actually doing the activity because it's very tempting for them to do any other, like gaming or any other activity. I don't know if I covered you, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You did very well. It sounds like there was more opportunity for sort of personal exchange and getting to know one, and relationship building.
Relationship, yes, it's many hours for a long time. It was, for us here, it was like 6 months, a very long time. And now coming back to school, it's again an adjustment period, because then, for example, if you have a very challenging student that has academic and behavioral, for them to adjust to the school rules again from the beginning. For example, I have a student that would just get up from the screen and go into another room and do something else, you know, because he's at home. And now this transition from the house environment is transitioned to school. So sometimes he might get up from the classroom and just leave without asking for permission. So, you know, we kind of have to build again and set the boundaries again in the school, which is, like from the start, it's a challenging time now to adjust again.
But also some causes for celebration. That's lovely.
Yes, yes, of course.
Absolutely. Next question, is there an employment agency that supplies shadow teachers? So basically what we do as a school is that we post a shadow teacher job vacancy on our school website, and professionals are able to submit their CVs through that platform, and then they go through the interview process with us, so as to identify best fit candidates for our school system, which then are filtered on and shared with families when the time comes. Okay, and now the next question, how do you determine the percentage of time a student would need a shadow teacher for? Always start with full-time, then transition down with a goal of independence? Yes, absolutely. That's exactly how we operate. So the initial kind of plan of action is that a student has a shadow teacher full-time. And then once we're able to determine based on collective feedback that we get from all teachers that work with the student and from the shadow teacher, we are then able to identify which classes they're able to be independent in. And at that time, the shadow teacher might not be physically with the student, but maybe preparing different, interventions that they want to implement with the student that they're working with. And then if we do see towards the end of the year that the student is coping well, then we might, the school might recommend a part-time shadow teacher. And, we really see how things evolve. So we take it step by step.
Before you go on, can I say hello to Timea and how is International School of Luxembourg is doing? Timea?
Hi, Chris.
How are you?
Hi,
Good to see
London. I just
you.
liked it. It's London, ISL London.
Luxembourg, London. How are you?
Luxembourg sounds like a good place too. Hi, everyone. I know Kemi's here and Chris, and so happy to finally meet you here online. I'm a learning support teacher and deputy Senko, and now recently I got appointed as a counselor, and this is ISL London. And yeah, I'm just curious. I'm on my half-term break, so I'm so sorry if I'm kind of coming in a little bit like tired looking. I'm just enjoying my break, and I just wanted to be here and see how we can maybe collaborate in the future together.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
Sorry, Natalia.
It's okay, it's okay.
Okay, let's go to the next question. How do you address students not responding to shadow teacher? Students in secondary often do not want to be seen as a different. That's very true. So
sorry, I asked this question. I could have said it myself. Thank you for reading it out.
It is very challenging, both for the shadow teacher and the student. Yes, we do have this kind of behavior, especially in high school or towards the end of middle school, because they become more mature. They're very, for their social image, I'm embarrassed and this and so on. So the shadow teacher should be very discreet. Now, if you see a student that is very feeling, okay, oh my God, everyone is looking at me. Now, what I usually have done in the past is that I would sit in the back and not very close to my students. We could share Google Docs, and if there's an academic need, I will sit in the back, and through the Google Docs, we can work on documents and we can edit together. And for example, I've had a student that through the Google Doc, he would type, "Miss, I need help," but he would never come close to ask me. What the shadow teacher can do is blend in the classroom along with the teacher. Therefore, other students also would ask for help. This way, your student will feel that, okay, my shadow teacher is kind of helping other students too. So I will not be embarrassed of having her or him, and I will be more comfortable in asking. Now, there's students that are comfortable, they don't feel that way. but there are students that are, there are times that your student will not listen to you and will react. We have, especially if it's behavior. So you need lots of patience. Again, as we say, we're there for the student. We don't take anything personal. We can monitor the behavior through behavior occurrences of behaviors that might not be appropriate. Therefore, the student, because he's more mature, can actually see what's happening, and then they can reflect on it. And this is how we can lead him to independency. Do you have any,
I think we have 4 more minutes left. If there's anything else that anybody wants to throw out, thank you, Sarah. And I know you need to leave. We had a meeting yesterday with the ACS Committee for Learning Support, and we're open to hearing any topics, themes, questions you might have you would like us to address in the near future. So if you look at the website and in ECIS, our special interest group has a page that provides resources, information, updated literature, and it's a point to connect, come together, and support each other. Once you build these relationships, we're talking about student-teacher or shadow teacher relationships, but we're also talking about colleague relationships. Not any one of us knows everything, but we can all help each other get what they need to support the students that why we're here for, to try to help them. So Chad, hearing you have so many shadow teachers, it makes my hair white. It wasn't white 2 years ago. I'm thrilled, because that means you've taken this as something personal, that you believed in it, and you made others believe in it as well, the way we did at ACS Athens. We started with 2 or 3, and how many do we have now, Natalia?
24.
24 shadow teachers, which means 24 students wouldn't have been able to receive the American education in a school setting. They would have been in another school in a self-contained classroom. And we're not just talking about students with mild learning differences. We're talking about students under the autism spectrum with behavioral and social, emotional, etc. needs. So it's really heartwarming to always be among professionals such as you that care in a different way. And I say, if everyone does one little part, it really becomes really big in the future. Dr. Lola, do you have something to say?
I think it's amazing what all of you have shared today. Thank you very much, and kind of really affirms the struggles and some of the challenges we're facing as well with finding shadow teachers. Hence the reason why I popped the question about finding an agency for a shadow teacher. I think going forward, this might be something we might need to look into, so we can just go straight to them, get the people in, interview them. Because sometimes the urgency to get a shadow teacher and the delay that comes with getting one means it takes a lot of time for that intervention to be put in place for a child in the classroom. And often it can be quite challenging for the classroom teacher and can affect learning in the classroom for other students as well. So thank you so much for sharing your insights on that today.
What country are you coming from?
I'm currently in Qatar.
Oh, Qatar.
The
Okay.
Gulf.
It's beautiful there. I've been there. But I
Yes,
think, again,
absolutely.
it's you have to think about, the place and what it's acceptable and not acceptable. In our school, what we do with
Yes.
Natalia, before I retired, we were doing it together. Now she's doing it with someone else. We would interview every candidate because we wanted to see their interpersonal skills. We wanted to see if they had the qualifications, because you need to be either, you know, a special educator, a teacher, a psychologist, or something like that, that would be able to understand the philosophy of why it is needed to be there to support the student. So there were many that we did not feel were acceptable because of, sometimes, believe it or not, they came to the office and I could smell the cigarette. I said, no, it's not a good fit. If they had a cigarette right before coming to the meeting, and I see people nodding,
Yes.
how are they going to sit next to the students? You know, I didn't like this. So, so you have to kind of see if it's a good fit as a shadow teacher, and then choose from your pool. Not everyone is capable of working with little kids or with older kids. So you have to find which area are they good at and match them with what is needed. And that's why you give the parent 2 or 3 choices, and they choose the one that they think, because they know their child best, is a good fit for their child. We can be talking about this topic for ages.
Ages.
Abigail, are you still there?
Yep.
I will allow you to end the meeting anywhere you want.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
Hi. Hello.
Oh, Cam, you're there. Okay, you can end the meeting.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today. April, thank you for your question, and we'll try to look at that next time. Huge thanks to Chris for your expertise as always, and to Natalia and Chad. Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Take care. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Cam.
Bye, everybody.